I'd like to call to order the February 20th meeting of the Chagrin Falls Board of Education. Ms. Lucott, would you please take the roll?
Mrs. Chagrin?
Here.
Mr. Rankin?
Here.
Mrs. Rose? Here. Mr. Kensinger?
Here.
Mrs. O'Toole? Here.
Now, if you all please join me to stand and face the flag for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. This is the point in our meeting where we invite public comment. Is there anyone here tonight who would like to address the board? If there is, I have a little statement to read. Okay, seeing none, we'll just move forward. Next on the agenda is the approval of minutes. Can I have a motion for the approval of the minutes for the January 9th organizational and January 9th regular meeting, as well as the January 23rd regular meeting?
So moved.
Any second?
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, Ms. Lucott, would you please take the roll?
Mrs. O'Toole?
Yes.
Mr. Rankin?
Yes.
Mrs. Garvey?
Yes.
Mrs. Rose?
Yes.
Mr. Kensinger?
Yes.
Okay, this time we have board reports, and first on the agenda is the board committee updates. We'll go through the list and share updates for any of the board committees that have met in the last couple of weeks. So first is the audit committee,
No report.
the board policy committee.
No report.
Do you have an upcoming meeting? In about a month, okay. The board policy committee will continue its discussions on several
I will
issues
let
next
you know
month.
at the meeting prior to the.
Thank you. The business advisory committee.
There was a meeting on February 9th, so the minutes have not yet come out from that meeting.
Okay, great, thank you. The capital planning committee. So we did have a meeting last Wednesday, February 13th. We discussed methodologies to calculate the appropriate annual budget for our capital projects on an ongoing basis. And we determined that approximately $2 million should be allocated each year. This is toward facility maintenance projects in the district. This is the amount that would allow us to address ongoing, predictable, and recurring major maintenance needs of our capital assets. We then discussed accounting options and budgeting strategies, because $2 million is a lot of money, to allow us to set aside that amount each year. These include transfers from the general fund to a PI fund, which is what our current practice is. We also looked at transfers from the general fund to a capital projects fund, which would be new to us but has some appeal that we want to consider. Allocating inside millage to a PI fund, and then a PI levy specifically for facility maintenance. Right now, we don't have any millage that's specifically allocated toward permanent improvements, and that is a little different from most districts in the state. We looked at some comparables. Most of our comparable districts have between 1 mill and 2 mills specifically allocated for maintenance. And interestingly, we also learned that if you were to do a project with the Ohio School Facility Commission, they would require you to have at least a half a mill set aside for facilities maintenance. So I think all of that underscores that districts across Ohio and the state of Ohio feel that it's very important for districts to have a reliable source of funds to maintain their buildings, and I think we would all agree with that. So that's what this committee is working on right now. We'll be bringing a recommendation forward to the board in the next couple of months about how we can start building a more dedicated PI fund. We also heard from Chris Swifter, who presented our committee with the summer PI projects, which the committee is now recommending tonight to the board for us to appropriate funds in the amount of $402,500, which would be approved later tonight under Ms. Lucott's report. With this approval, our total PI fund allocation for this year will be $1.283 million. So really a lot of good projects being caught up on and accomplished in the district while we have a major construction project underway. So kudos to Mr. Wifter and his team for everything that you're doing to keep our facilities running smoothly. The Board Finance and Budget Committee is a new committee that we formed at our last meeting. Mr. Rankin is the chair of that committee, and I think he has a brief update for us as well.
Yep, so I actually have a draft of our charter for the committee. You can read it at your leisure. Let me just call especially on the second page, basically the purpose. So appreciate Candy, gave a lot of feedback and helped kind of schedule out the meetings by quarter, what we plan on doing. Our first meeting plans on being late in April. And going over a subject, we kind of allocated, or Candy really allocated them over the year based on, different reports and submissions to the state, which are due. Like I said, you can read through those at your leisure. And also then we added on a quarterly basis, reviewing the actual versus planned expenditures, as well as, a general review of fund balances. So I think between Candy and I, we kind of put our heads together and we've got most everything covered here throughout the year and kind of spread out throughout the year as it's timely.
Great.
So,
So late April, and then I wanted to announce we are appointing 2 community members to that committee. First is John O'Brien, and second is Mr. Brian Paul. We're considering a 3rd community member as well, but we feel like we're in a good place right now with those 2 who have vast experience in financial reporting and accounting to add a community perspective as well to our dialogue. So we'll look forward to getting together. Thank you, Mr. Rankin. And the Records Retention Committee did not have anything to report this month. And then the next thing on the agenda for board reports is an update on our treasurer search. We want to thank all of our community and staff members who took time to give us some feedback, not only about the qualities that we should be looking for in a treasurer, but also in the strengths of our school district and also some issues that we need to make sure are on the forefront of our minds that our school district will be facing in the coming years. I'm going to read you some of the summary comments. And by the way, this document is on the district website under the treasurer search page. It is the completed treasurer search profile, and we have some hard copies as well back where the cookies are. So won't be a surprise to anybody that overall strengths consistently mentioned of the district are a culture of success and high achievement, qualified staff who care so much about our students and their success, community involvement through volunteerism and financial support, community and staff who have high expectations. Some of the issues that were called out that the district wants to stay aware of, that our future financial strength remains dependent on the periodic need for additional levies, and they primarily come from a residential tax base. We have aging facilities with high deferred maintenance needs. We have need to maintain concern about the lack of state funding. Again, that goes back to our local taxpayers kind of bearing the burden of funding our schools. And keep an eye on continually rising expenditures, which is part of what the new Finance and Budget Committee is going to be assisting with, not that we haven't been doing that. With regard to the characteristics of our new treasurer, consistently people said we need a leader who can communicate school finances and funding issues clearly to all stakeholders. We need a person who has a strong presentation and interpersonal relationship skills. We'd like someone with experience in school finance who will prepare, present accurate and timely financial reports. We want a collaborative team member who is approachable and will have an open door policy. We want an individual who will be willing to be visible and have a presence in our community. So again, I just want to thank everybody for their input. This really strengthens as the board is proceeding with looking to screen candidates and determine which candidates to interview. And that's really our next step as a board. In about a month, we will start screening candidates and then performing interviews. So let's move on then to the superintendent's reports. At this point, I'll turn it over to Mr. Hunt.
Thank you. Good evening. Just one report or one presentation this evening. We're fortunate enough to be joined by a team from Spring Falls Middle School, and they're going to talk us through some work they've done with PLCs, and we love our acronyms, so Greg, you can add this to your list. Stand for Professional Learning Communities. So I'd like to commend them thank them for being here. I really want to commend Mrs. DeSenza and the work she's done over the last couple of years. It's a notable difference in terms of the interactions that are happening at the middle school. I had the opportunity to sit in a staff meeting the other day, and the work they're doing with data and the conversations they're having about students are just amazing, and a lot of that's due to her leadership, and I'm sure the work of some of the individuals here tonight. So at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Mrs. DeSenza and let her introduce her team.
I don't know if you were forewarned about
Yeah,
this
we were.
standing recognition. Thank you. Is there still an X on the phone?
No.
So good evening. Tonight we'd like to share a little bit about teaching and learning that's going on at the middle school for students and teachers. And I have with me this evening, we have Emily Moore, our science teacher extraordinaire, Marissa Osberg, the English teacher in our building, and Jennifer Romili, an intervention specialist. And we wanted to share a little bit about everything that ties into really what we pride ourselves on. We know that our goals are very, very important. They're our beacon. It lets us know where we're going, and it helps us to reflect to see what we've been doing and how we can continue to do better. And we also know that the root of our focus is student success. And when you put the goals and the student success together, it really comes out to teachers. Because when data looks at the growth and the success of students, it really comes from the single most important ingredient, and it's the teacher in the classroom of those kids. So we want to talk about what we can do to help improve that continuous type of learning. And we have professional developments, and really it's our teachers improving their practices, and it's evidence then in our students on having success and growing. For any type of professional development to be successful, it should be specific, active, collaborative, supportive, reflective, and sustained. So as a leader, it's my job to look to see what types of developments are out there for us to go to, or which ones we kind of create ourselves, and let the teachers really take it from there. And they can be local, they can be state, they can be national, or they can be in-house. And all of those, that whole gamut we've done over the years, especially this year at the middle school, that we're going to share with you tonight about.
Okay, so why attend a conference? Ralph Waldo Emerson once said, "Nothing great has ever been achieved without enthusiasm." Well, what does attending a conference do for myself personally? It excites me. I love it. I love stepping out of the classroom. I love my kids, but I love stepping out of the classroom. I love challenging myself. I love learning new ways to do things, because you can always grow, you can always develop. We're able to learn new skills and techniques. It renews and it refreshes me and my partners as well. Sparks innovation, creativity, collaboration, and future learning, which you'll hear about in the next few slides. And now, what do we do with that information? Well, we share it out with staff and departments. You'll hear about that coming up in the slideshow as well. We're able to obtain resources, collaborate with other professionals, which is phenomenal. You'll hear Emily talk about OMLA, which we attended back in October, and we were able to collaborate with different schools such as Mayfield, Twinsburg, I believe, was there. Schools that we never would have attended or spoken with, we were able to collaborate with those teachers one-on-one. It was pretty amazing. And then also implement new instruction techniques into our classroom, which not only benefits us, but it really benefits the kids, and that's why we're all here.
So each of us were motivated for different reasons to attend OMLA. I know Carol Dennison and Amy Fenton went in with the mental health aspect, especially being part of the TPS teams and high care. That's that whole initiative coming through. And then trying to figure out a way that we can incorporate a better growth mindset into our students and the staff. Marissa and I attended a few sessions on standards-based grading, and we heard a little trickle down the line that we're looking at this as a whole district, and so we've kind of keyed in on it and have started looking for future things that we can learn and best assess our students based on the standards, kind of change our practice. We all go in with the hope of finding new formative assessments. And, I came out with games to play with kids. They love this new game called Get Kit. If you've heard of it, they're making millions of dollars. And it's just a really fun way for them to share what they've learned with us and to also keep learning. And then the whole 8th grade team, and all of us take part in this, is with the 8th grade team interdisciplinary unit, which is Forces in Motion. So my science class, and Tammy Rothchuk's as well, have been pushing the Newton's laws, and then kind of putting a spin of how can we read this as a metaphor and become a force in motion and make change in our community. So we each have taken a little piece, and each group is kind of doing something different to be a force in motion in the school, the community, and beyond. It's very, very good.
I had the honor of attending the National Council Teachers of English Conference this year, and it was in Texas. It was where 8,000 English teachers came together from all over the United States. So it was like, I was so excited. So a couple of the teachers there were joking, saying, students, this is your worst nightmare. All of your English teachers coming together. But I worked collaboratively with some professors at Kent State and also some teachers in the area to present on writing ourselves, which was a project that Becky allowed me to be involved in as soon as I came here, which I was really grateful for. And my portion of the presentation was on how I use digital writing portfolios in the classroom and how we're having the students really focus on the process of writing instead of their final paper, revision, and reflection. I also attended some sessions on choice and upcoming units that I had in my classroom. One of my favorite sessions was presented by the Folger Shakespeare Library. And if you could click that for me, I'll be the clicker first. Perfect. If you could click it one more time. So I'd like to show you and have you participate in, if you wouldn't mind, one of my favorite strategies that I took away. And this is for teaching tone. So before I taught my Shakespeare unit this year for A Midsummer Night's Dream, I knew that my students were going to need some help with assessing tone. It's not only difficult when reading a regular text, but with Shakespeare it becomes even more complicated. So I had this word O up on the board, and O appears hundreds and hundreds of times in Shakespeare's works. So as the feeling word pops up underneath the O, I would like you guys in unison to please say the word O with that feeling, if you would mind. Y'all ready? There we go. Oh! Good. A little louder next time. If you were my students, I'd have you stand up. Yes. You'd probably give them a... Yeah.
Not a thumbs up, not thumbs down, just sit down. Here's the next one. Here's the next one. You ready?
Oh. Much better. Much better.
Oh.
All right, and we're going to do one more set of these just so that you can get really comfortable with it. Here comes our word O again. I clicked it.
It's coming. It's coming. It's taking a sec.
There we go.
Oh.
That's a nice one. Good. You can click it one more time for me. So then I asked the kids, what did you notice from this activity? Click it one more time. And I was really surprised with their responses. Some of them started acting as they were doing this in class, so they noticed that their facial expressions and their hand movements changed, and their voices went up and down, and that's what tone is. So we were really able to, start working with tone from the strategy that I learned. And then I won't have you do this, but the very next step was practicing this same strategy. You can just click it maybe just a couple times. Perfect. So we started practicing the strategy with lines from the text that they were going to be seeing soon as we read. And so this is an angry father who is not happy with his daughter's choices for marriage. And so we were able to easily start assessing that he was not a happy character right off the bat. And I won't have you do this, so you can just keep clicking through.
So they had to say this phrase multiple times with the different tones, see how it changed.
And then, if you could click, I think, 2 more times. I did a little data collecting on this just to see if the kids thought that it was helpful in understanding tone. And I think I had one kiddo say that it didn't help him understand tone, but the rest of them really thought that this was a successful activity. They thought that I should do it again next year. And it was, I think, one of my favorites that I've done so far this year, because it was fun. It got them up and moving, and now they can tell me what tone is.
They were engaged.
And then I also, I think I said this already, but I had the option to present. And this is just a picture of me talking a little bit about what I do with digital writing portfolios in the classroom. And we had a packed house. I was really excited about it. And again, my portion of the project was presenting on how I use digital writing portfolios with some tech tools such as Screencastify, Rubric, and Tab Resize.
All right, so teachers teaching teachers. Layla gave us the unique opportunity at our staff meeting to service other teachers in our building buffet style. And I'm not just gonna let me click on there. Will it? Maybe not willing. So what we did was, for the last half of our staff meeting, Marissa, Emily, and myself. Great, thank you.
And the other teachers that attended the conference.
Right, and a few other teachers were able to present different stations, if you will, kind of like a buffet. And other teachers in the building had an option of picking 2 different stations to go to and listen to these presentations. And they had 15 minutes at each station. And it was really neat because we were able to share with everyone else what we learned at the conferences and what we're already using in our classrooms. And that gave them an opportunity to then start building and using that in their classrooms as well. The one group that I had was, you don't have to scroll down, but it was based on vocabulary skills. If you can, that's great. Jen Remayuli and Kathleen. So Kathleen and I were working on monitoring student progress by using games. And me being an intervention specialist, vocabulary is an area that students really struggle with. But when we looked at the data, it's not just struggling students that need to know vocabulary, it's all students that need to know vocabulary. And research shows that students need to be presented with vocabulary before they read text. It increases comprehension, it increases engagement, and so we practiced how to use these games to help them learn the vocabulary. And the game was called Kaboom, which is a lot of fun. It just sounds fun when you say Kaboom. But they're popsicle sticks that you use, and you have vocabulary words listed on those sticks, and they're differentiated by level, student level, and students are in different groups. But the neat thing is kids don't know they're in different groups. They all see they have words to work on, and they fluctuate from different groups based on their ability and how well they do. The object of the game is to get as many sticks as you can without getting a kaboom. If you get a kaboom, you lose all of your sticks. So they have a word, they have to know what that meaning is, and it's a fast-paced game. You only spend like 5-10 minutes using this game. Kathleen does this in Spanish right now. I'm incorporating it in language arts, specifically in intervention, but this can be used with science, social studies. It's not content specific, and the kids love it. So using what the kids love is really important.
And then if you scroll back to the top, Marissa and I had a chance to talk about one method of standards-based grading that we had keyed in on, and it's called the grid method. It's straightforward. And it lays out the path that the students will take in advancing up Bloom's taxonomy. They use a different set of depth of knowledge. And so you're advancing up it from one level, start at the bottom, kind of keep building yourself up. And it just lays it out for the students, for the teachers, and even at home, so you can keep track of where your child is on their journey with that standard. As we looked at it more, we're like, wow, this is a whole big mindset that we have to swap, and we have to really rethink how we're going through things, but it's an exciting transition as we move into it.
So if you can go back to the slideshow and I will, here we go.
So it really, our students really deserve the best, and in order for that to occur, our teachers have to be their best. Our teachers, I put my money on every day in the classroom is making the biggest difference, and when they go to these conferences or they're collaborating with one another, you can see that they're excited, they're learning new things, they're trying it, they're taking it back into the classroom, and they're seeing how it's working and they're sharing it with others. And that's just the way that we can all grow. So the teaching and learning is consistently going on for our students and our teachers, and we just thank you always for the opportunity for everyone to maximize their potential.
Thank you.
Questions?
That was great. I think that's the first interactive presentation, at least that I remember, so you guys might have started something. And we should thank you, because a lot of this professional development requires you to take time away from family and friends to go travel or do something, and then your free time, to bring those ideas back and really make it something that you can share with the rest of the staff. So thank you for that.
It's honestly, it's our principal is the one that allows us to go to these, and we're just very privileged to have that opportunity to do this. So this was my first year at LMLA, and I loved it. Like, you know, you're just a kid in a candy store, literally. Like, oh my gosh, this is so exciting. You want to record everything that was going on. So it was very, very cool and very blessed to have that opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
It's crazy how 2 days of a conference can feel like you've had an entire summer break and you're so excited to come
It's
in.
true. It's true. And if we can bottle that up and give it to our kids, that emotion, that feeling, I mean, that's real learning. That's when it sticks with them and it's not going to go away.
Yeah.
So it's very cool.
Okay, Mr. Hunt, does that conclude your?
That concludes my report, and I do want to give everyone an opportunity to go home if you need to go home. So we really appreciate you being here tonight.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay, at this point, I'll turn the meeting over to Ms. Lucott for the treasurer's reports.
Okay, you previously received a copy of the January 2019 financial report. Last month was the first time I prepared it, and I was really just getting on board. This month I got to dive into it a little bit deeper, and I want to point out a few highlights too. First off, I didn't color the pages, so you'll see the first memo had some references to colored pages, and I didn't do that, so I apologize. But I do want to point out some of the revenues that we received this month, because we are starting to see our property tax advances coming in, and we did receive the first one in January, so that was booked that month. From both Cuyahoga and Geauga County in the general fund and in your bond fund. In addition, the district received casino revenue. We received 2 payments a year of casino revenue, and we received the second one this fiscal year, the end of January. In addition to the regular open enrollment, preschool tuition and interest earnings that you see each month, we also stepped up our collections for full-day kindergarten tuition. So we're trying to wrap that up for the parents who have full-day kindergarten students this year. Also this month, expenditures, just want to hit some of the highlights there. Some overtime for custodial maintenance and transportation was down from the preceding month. It was $9,600, and the substitute teacher costs were down a little bit from the previous month also, and it was $14,721 this month. I pointed out a few balances in some other funds down at the bottom of that page. General fund receipts were $2.4 million, expenditures were $2.3 million. Again, it was a timing with that property tax coming in. Total revenues for all funds were about $3 million, and expenditures for all funds were $5.3 million. We did make a payment to the Gilbane company for the construction project, so that was reflected in that $5.3 million. The capital improvement funds balance at the end of the month is $18 million. The lunchroom fund had a balance of $379,000. The Excel Tech and federal fund cash balances are negative right now, but those are pending reimbursement, so it's a timing issue. And positive balances in all of our athletic and student activity funds, which is what we want to see. I just want to take a minute to point out the next page of that report. It has a kind of a funny name, the Form SM2, and I can't tell you what that stands for. But this format mirrors your 5-year forecast, and it gives you a bit of a snapshot of your actuals versus your projected. And Mr. Rankin pointed out that that's going to be a topic of interest to discuss in those finance committee meetings. So really the planning and the preparation that goes into this is done the year before, when you're doing your 5-year forecast and when you're doing your budget for the next year. You're loading in your projections, so your monthly estimates, which roll up into your fiscal year to date estimates. And then as the expenditures and revenue come in, you can track that on here. And a lot of this, from what I've seen, this report, it's a timing issue. It's when payments are received or when you make payments with the district. But it's interesting to see how accurate it really is when you have a good plan in place. And that's certainly the case here, and I think you'll appreciate that. If you've been looking at this closely, you do appreciate that. But I think that's something that you definitely want to highlight in that finance committee, is the careful planning and then how you can track that throughout the year. The next page is your cash flow report. Again, we're on cash basis accounting, so that's really, it's important to track, but not as important as if you were on an accrual basis. Some graphs that are generated from previous information, and then a lot of the detail behind each of the accounts, behind each of the checks that are issued. Also included in here is an investment report that I think is worth, again, the Finance Committee taking some time and looking at those investments. I don't know how often your board has reviewed your investment plan, your current investments, and then you do work with an advisor at Fifth Third Investment Securities, and it may be interesting to have them come in and make a presentation to that committee as well, to talk about what the district has invested and why. Okay? And then again, the end of the report really wraps up with a lot of the check detail, and I've been trying to give you some of those highlights in a weekly report. We run checks every week. When I initially came on board, there had been some backlog, and we were trying to catch up with some payments. And so we were doing that more often. But we're falling into a good cycle right now with checks being cut once a week. And you'll see that detail on there, and I've tried to highlight some of that information as we've gone along. So that's the highlights of the Treasurer's Financial Report this month. But if you have any questions, please let me know.
I have a kind of a general question that you don't really have to answer tonight. It's more philosophical, I guess. On the graphs, so that's going to be page 7. When we show, let's say on ending cash balance, we've got fiscal year 18 actuals, we got fiscal 19 estimates, and then we get the actuals from 19 as we go along. The estimate, was that like the fiscal year 19 estimate, was that like in July? Was that from the 5-year forecast? Because I see sometimes those numbers have changed. And so, I was trying to, if I look at like January receipts, okay, let's look at that one. So I got actual receipts of like 2 million something, but the estimate was 4. So I looked up at the SM2, but the estimate showed 0. But if I look back at the July, it was 4. So at some point that changed. So I don't know if this should change.
Oh,
Maybe we'll have to, we could talk offline. But I wonder, and then so I look at the ending cash balances, and which were, so February through June, we're just showing projected based on July numbers, but actually I'm wondering if we should have like an updated estimate, because it looks like we're going to end the year at 10 million something, not 12. So I don't know that we have to wait till June to see that.
and it may be, and
I know, this is just me. This is what I did today.
I didn't put your projections in there, so.
Right, I know,
But I would assume that they were put in at the beginning of the year.
Yes, that's what I think.
They probably needed to be updated at the time of your 5-year forecast.
Maybe that's.
And then I would assume you would update them again at the time of your May update to your forecast.
So that'd be
That's
a
what
good
you're-
time to revisit it.
Yeah,
No, we can do that in finance committee, but this is just something I was today and said,
So what makes
Like
you
this.
think we're on track to
if I
be
look
at
at
10 instead of 12 million?
if I look at the purple sheet,
Which one's the purple sheet?
This one, so page 5.
Okay.
If you look at our ending cash balance projected now, because this one updates with the actual to the estimate. Our ending cash balance is almost 10.5. So I'm thinking that should show up on the graph as opposed to.
Yeah, I mean, we could look at it. I think it kind of depends, like, you want to have I guess I'd call it like a plan number,
Right.
plan or a budget number versus a forecast number.
Yeah.
You know, I don't think you want to you probably want to keep visibility of that 5-year plan or budget.
Oh, absolutely, but I wonder if there should be another column. But then I also wonder, I'm like, why did January, at one point it was 4 million, but now it looks like it was 2, so I don't know. But none of us sitting here probably knows that answer, but this is just some stuff I was
Right.
thinking about. But,
Yeah, we can
Yeah.
dive into that
Okay.
a little bit better. Yeah, absolutely.
all right.
Does anybody else have any questions? Okay, can I have a motion for consent agenda items 8A through 8E? Second?
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, Ms. Luca, would you please take the roll?
Mrs. Rose?
Yes.
Mr. Kinzinger?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Toole?
Yes.
Mr. Rankin?
Yes.
Mrs. Garvey?
Yes. Can I have a motion for superintendent's recommendations 9A through 9E?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Mr. Rankin seconded. Mr. Hunt, would you like to speak to these?
Sure. Item A is a recommendation to increase salary of Mike Doherty to bring him to the level of directors within the district. Item B is a recommendation for full-day kindergarten tuition. And we'll note that that's an increase of approximately 7%. This tuition has not been increased in the last 3 years. I want to thank Ms. Lucat for putting together a lot of information in preparation for this recommendation. I think it is very helpful in looking at what our costs are, what we're allowed to offset, and break things down. So there's certainly some background for that recommendation. Item C is the preschool tuition rate that we are not recommending an increase at this time. And item D and E, I put these on. We have not approved these in the past, but I put these on just as a kind of a confirmation of our conversations regarding the tennis court decisions. We're postponing that, pushing that off until the master plan is complete. We can kind of vet some of those ideas and thoughts regarding the tennis courts. This would allow us for our tennis teams to participate next year at University School as well as Laurel. And with this approval this evening, I will draft a letter that will go out from the athletic department to parents to make them aware of kind of where we stand with things.
Great. Any discussion? Ms. Luca, would you please take the roll?
Mrs. O'Toole?
Yes.
Mr. Rankin?
Yes.
Mrs. Rose?
Yes.
Mrs. Garvey?
Yes.
Mr. Kinzinger?
Yes.
And now for treasurer's recommendations. Can I have a motion for recommendations 10A through 10C?
So moved.
Second? Second. Any discussion? Actually, Ms. Luca, would you like to speak to these before we open up for discussion?
Sure. Item A is the financial reports that were presented and just discussed. Item B is actually kind of an exciting one. We're getting some donations in for the opening of the intermediate school. And we're tracking those in a separate fund. So we will be able to keep them all together, recognize these donors, their generosity and involvement in the project. So you see, we've received 3 so far, and we'll keep you updated as we continue to receive those.
And just, these are specifically for a film that's being made, a historic film to document the kind of history of the building and to be presented at the opening.
Yes. So specifically for that project, these donations are being received for that purpose.
Great.
Okay. And then item C is the recommendation for the resolution to make the transfer from general fund for the permanent improvement fund that was discussed at the capital planning committee as Mr. Wolfger had presented the summer projects. So this is the remaining amount being requested for the summer projects.
Great. And we went over those in quite a bit of detail in the capital planning meeting, so unless Mr. Richter has anything to add, I think we're in a good place. And as I said, that committee would recommend that the board appropriate these funds, transfer these funds. Okay, any other discussion?
We see where's like some of the big projects, just for the record, kept doing that.
Mr. Richter?
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Just the big,
They're on the, if you click on the
yeah,
links.
that's what I was saying out loud.
Do you want to just give a quick 2 or 3 that are,
Yes,
sorry to put you on the
I'm so
spot.
sorry. I should,
Well, one is the chlorination at Gurney,
Right.
which will address improving, helping the district manage the water there. I was trying to buy you some time.
Thank you. Looking at the entrances, the high school and at Gurney, which is a
Right.
large project. Looking at a radio project to update some of our radio infrastructure and add some radios as well too. And as well as some various other projects that we visited last week as well.
Thank you. Okay, so if there's no other discussion, then I'll have Ms. Lucup please take the roll.
Mr. Rankin?
Yes.
Mrs. Gross?
Yes.
Mr. Kinzinger?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Toole?
Yes.
Mrs. Garden?
Yes. Does anyone have any other business they'd like to introduce?
I would just like to let the board know that I think you're aware we did receive about $12,000, I think is the number, in state money for safety and security. One of those expenses was to have a safety and security audit conducted throughout the district. We got a draft of that back. We took the recommendations to our security committee meeting this afternoon, actually before this meeting. We had about 12 people attend, really good dialogue. Some of the projects that you've approved that we do kind of align with some of the recommendations, which is certainly a good thing. The next steps with this recommendations, we'll obviously bring them to the Board of Education to share, but we're going to look at how those align with our allocations in PI, and we'll probably bring some of that around to capital planning for that group to consider as we move forward too. But I would say that the individual that conducted, the audit was very complimentary of all the work that we've done in the district, and maybe spent too much time there, but in the meeting, but we certainly had an opportunity to sit down and engage the community members that are really interested in this area, and I think will help hold us accountable to continue to move forward in that area moving forward.
And help us communicate out, right, the work of the district too, so
Sure.
that's great that you have so many. How many community members are?
So there was 12 in attendance today, and I had 2 that didn't come, so that's
Okay.
about 14. I don't know exactly what the total number in the committee is, but some really interesting backgrounds. We've got pilots, we've got different people that are looking at our flip chart that's on our Navigate software, so they're actually doing some work for the district, and I think it's a really productive group for sure. Yeah.
And how often does that committee come together? or
So
is it just
we
like
have been
us?
meeting probably every 2 or 3 months since
Okay.
Parkland, and just a reminder, last year we had a big forum, and kind of this stemmed from that. I would imagine we'll go 2 times a year quarterly as we kind of get to where we need to be over the next couple of months.
Thank you.
Sure.
Then I'd like to announce our next meeting, which will be Wednesday, March 6th, in the high school library. I think this room must be being used for another purpose, so we'll be meeting in the library. We do not have executive session tonight, so I would like to have a
You know
motion.
what? I just thought of one thing I want to add.
Sure.
I did attend or participate with the Tiger Perks, the 2 dates so far this month where they did the bagels in addition to coffee.
Sure.
It was a wonderful experience.
Great.
And I totally have a much better understanding of what goes on. And I believe Friday is the high school one. If anyone else wanted to give it a try, it
Thank you.
was really nice.
I'm glad you're able to do that. Okay, so that concludes our meeting. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second? Ms. Luca, would you take the roll? That was Mr. Rankin seconding.
Mrs. Gross?
Yes.
Mr. Rankin?
Yes.
Mrs. Garvey?
Yes.
Mr. Kinzinger?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Toole?
Yes.
Bye.